Jay, welcome to the program. How are you today?
Hey, Dan. It's good to be back on here.
How did this role come up for CBS?
Well, that's a good question. I was calling games for them in college. I started last year when I finished up playing and then started doing some sideline work after the college season finished and for the NFL. And there was a couple of kicking plays that happened, and, they just threw it down to me on the sideline, and I broke them down and talked about why it happened, how it happened, whether it was a blocked field goal or a big return. There's so many things that happen in the special teams role in that realm that don't really get explained to the casual viewer. And I think that's just something that they said, I think that's an area that we can be a pioneer and bring something to the viewer that they don't really understand.
I think in this era, you have to have a good, great quarterback to make it to the Super Bowl. How important is it in the kicking game?
Well, when you look at, I brought up a fact yesterday that over the last 6 years, kickers have been 91% during the postseason compared to 84% in the regular season, which is pretty substantial when you look at how big that gap is. And I think it's because guys are better. I think there's two reasons. One, the kickers are better in the postseason for those teams. If you struggle during the season, with parity, you're going to lose games that are close and miss kicks. And that's going to cost your team a lot of times. You don't make the playoffs. The other reason is you don't kick near as many long field goals. Now, that didn't hold true in the Dallas game, the Dallas-Green Bay game. But for the most part, you're not attempting field goals over 50 yards. And, the one weakness with New England right now is Stephen Gostkowski, and it goes back to the AFC Championship last year. He misses that extra point.
Yeah.
And really up until that point, he had been the best kicker in the NFL for the last 3 years. But he misses that extra point. That plays a big impact on the outcome of that game. They have to go for two at the end of the game. They don't get it. And I think it had a big hangover effect with him throughout this season because he was not the same kicker this year. And he misses another extra point last night. And now of his 9 missed kicks on the year, 7 of them have been right. He's like a golfer who just keeps pushing the ball right.
Well, he has a fade to his kick, Jay. Is that on
purpose? He had a little fade before, but he's got a slice
now. Do you think?
And even to the point, this year, halfway through the season, when he was struggling so much, he moved over to the left hash on extra points and just said, okay, I'm going to try and play it. And I'll aim down the left side, then he'll fade back, and hopefully I don't slice it enough. But, he keeps missing those kicks right.
How important, now you get into your head, I would imagine, as a kicker. Maybe it's like golf, but how much of a factor do you think this plays in the Super Bowl?
It's just like golf, and you for sure can get in your head. And I spoke to him throughout the season a little bit and just gave him my thoughts, and they weren't anything revolutionary, but focusing on, his fundamentals and believing in himself and trusting in the guy that he's been for the last 10 years. Because his career at New England, this is shocking, but it's better than Adam Vinatieri's career at New England. Now, he hasn't had the big kicks and the big moments in the Super Bowls and the game-winning kicks, but his percentage is better. His percentage in the playoffs is 10 percentage points better than Adam Vinatieri's was in the playoffs.
Is Vinatieri better at what he does than Brady at what he does?
That's a good question. I think they're both the best of all time at their position. I think Adam deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, and he's the best of all time because of longevity and sustained success. And you look at Tom, and he's in his 7th Super Bowl now, an opportunity to win his 5th. And, I think they're both going to go down as the greatest at their position of all time. But the quarterback position is so much harder than the kicking position. There's so much more that goes into it. And you have to be a leader. You have to go out there, and you have to manage your team not only on the field but off of the field. Kicking, you just go out there and you do your job. You kick the ball.
Yeah, but he's won 2 Super Bowls. Vinatieri won it with kicks.
He did, and he missed a kick in the Carolina game earlier in that game, and he came back and made the game winner. And that's why he's been the best kicker of all time, because in those clutch moments, the Oakland game, who knows what happens to this Patriots team in the dynasty if he doesn't make that 45-yard field goal in the snow in Oakland against Oakland.
I know, and I bring that up, that it's the Tuck game, the Tuck rule. But people forget Vinatieri in a driving snowstorm is kicking a 45-yarder to send him to the Super Bowl. I mean, that's
maybe a 1 in 20 kick, at that point. I mean, literally the greatest kick in NFL history. And then when you go back and you look at the implications of that kick and what it started, and then he went and he made one, a shorter one in overtime. But, even a 25-yard field goal in that snow is not something easy to do.
He's Jay Feely. He works for CBS. They're kicking expert, former NFL kicker. Now, you were with the Players Association for a while, right?
14 years, long time. You and I had a lot of conversations about that over the years.
Yes, we did. But when you took this job at CBS, then you stopped doing that?
Well, I stopped being employed by an NFL team.
Okay.
And that's what stopped my employment or my duty with the NFLPA.
But, okay, you
have to be an active player.
Is Deflategate gone? Has Brady put it in his rearview mirror?
Not until he wins this next game.
If he wins this, is it then we move past it, or is it's always going to be there with him?
Well, I think people are always going to bring it up because it's the Patriots and because there's a history. And, there's no question that this game and this season is personal for Tom Brady. And just his message to his parents and his sisters after the game and the post-game interview with Tracy Wolfson, there was a lot that went into that.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of emotion for him to step up on that stage and to say that. There was a bunch of stuff on the internet that were saying that was him, throwing shade at Aaron Rodgers. It was unquestionably, he was acknowledging how rough a year it's been for his family, going through all of that offseason, all of that stuff, and then his suspension, and, how personally they all take it because they're such a tight family.
Why hasn't the commissioner gone to New England?
I don't know. He's scared to go there, I guess. He can't avoid him any longer, though.
Well, yeah, it could be awkward there in Houston, but it's a neutral site, though, Jay.
It's a neutral site. There's nothing that Tom Brady would like more, though, than the commissioner having to come up and present them with the Super Bowl trophy and then maybe even the MVP trophy.
How do you think Brady was treated by the NFL? If it's different, if it's another name, is he treated differently? Now, from a Players Association perspective here, obviously.
Well, I could tell you from the Players Association perspective as well as my own personal, opinion. And I was in the judges' chambers there, and I think all along that it was unfair and it was unjust and it was arbitrary, and they made a decision early on, and they didn't necessarily follow the collective information. They were trying to justify their decision. They didn't understand what actually happened. But it's interesting because my son did his science project this year, Dan, on PSIs, and he wanted to see what happened to the PSIs. And so at 0 degrees, a ball went from 12.5 down to 9.5 in 30 minutes. And at 100 degrees, it went from 12.5 up to 15.5. So there's huge fluctuations in the ball depending on, what the temperature is.
Can you have your son mail his project here and I put it up in the man cave?
I will for sure do that when he's finished. Now the pressure's on. Now he's got to do a really good job of the whole presentation. Because, boys, when my girls do their projects, they're beautiful and they're ornate. When my son does his project, it's sloppy and he just throws it on there. So I'm going to tell him he's got to do a really good one now.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about how could this have been handled differently where it's a $25,000 fine or that we didn't get dragged through this for a couple of years?
Well, they could have handled it a number of different ways. They could have called the Patriots before the AFC Championship game and said, hey, here's what's going on. This is what we hear. Make sure that nothing is going on. And it ended. It never becomes anything. They could have just handled it internally and fined them and said, this is what the fine is in the CBA for this infraction, and it's over with, and it doesn't become a big thing. But because of the way they did it, the cloak and dagger, and I think there was people who wanted to catch the Patriots. I think that's what it comes down to. Is
other owners?
There was people. I don't know if there's owners or I was probably, I'd probably say it's probably other owners as well as people within the league office that, felt like they have always flirted with the rules and they wanted to catch him.
Yeah, I got the feeling that it almost was like Robert Kraft says, look, you can do this to us as an organization and then we'll move on. And then the owners caught wind of it and said, wait. And then that's when the investigation started. Whether that's true or not, that was always the feeling I got. Because why would Robert Kraft volunteer that unless he knew what the answer was going to be with the commissioner?
Well, and to me, the whole thing, and the fact that we're talking about it instead of talking about, how great he's played all year, it's just asinine. You go back and you tell quarterbacks for 10 years you can do anything you want to the footballs, and so they do.
Yeah.
They do mud baths. They take sandpaper. They do all kinds of stuff all week to prepare those balls exactly the way they want them, and then to one day say, we're going to come in and we're going to hold you accountable for preparing the balls the way that you want them.
The best holder you've ever had when you were kicking was who?
I was going to say my wife.
Whoa, wait a minute here.
The best holder I ever had was
Brady any
probably,
good? Was Brady any good?
Brady was pretty good. Yeah, he held for me in college. That's all he did when we won the national championship was hold on field goals, which is just shocking to think about how great he's become and the best of all time. And yeah, he was sitting on the sidelines watching that season. But, he was a good holder. He was always diligent. He cared about it, and he cared about his teammates.
Ross Tucker was on last hour. He said that Brady, greatest beer chugger ever.
I saw that. I'm gonna concur with Ross. I don't think he's chugging any beer anymore unless it's like gluten-free and all organic.
Was he first team All Big Ten chugging while you were there?
Oh, for sure.
Wow. He does it all, man. He does it all.
He's the most competitive guy I've ever been around. So whether it was chugging beer or it's playing dominoes or, anything that he does, golf, whatever, he wants to beat the person that he's playing against, which is why it's so fun to beat him. That's one of the greatest things ever is to beat him in a game and just to make him mad.
Well, we'll see if the Falcons can make him mad. Jay, it's always great to talk to you. Thanks for your insights as always, and we'll cross paths down the road. Thank you.
All right, Dan. Take care. Bro.
All right, that's Jay Feely, the kicking expert for CBS, and Tom Brady held for him in college.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.